Many people believe firearms training is all about speed and aggression and looking tactical. The reality is that the quality of your first instructor may shape your entire attitude towards training for years to come. In this episode, senior lone operator instructors Gerard van der Westhuizen, Scott McLean, and Dirk Oosthuizen discuss how instructors build competence, confidence, and a culture of excellence without allowing ego to drive the process. Gentlemen, good evening. Welcome back.
Good evening, Rian.
Good evening, Rian.
Okay. I'll nominate, I think, Dirk, I'll kick off with you. How much responsibility does an instructor carry in shaping a student's entire long-term attitude towards firearms training after their first exposure?
Well, Rian, first exposure often defines the lifelong perception of what to expect from firearm training. So it's not just the instructor is this good, I want to train with him, but also the way he speaks, listens, answers questions, and that's going to determine if the person is going to come back or his first session is going to be his last session. So responsibility for safety, the mindset, and the discipline needs to be set first of all.
Mhm.
And then from there on, just add a little bit, and until the whole picture emerges. And then hopefully the student will understand the whole process and not just shooting fast or shooting accurate, that specific thing that he wants from that instructor or from that course or whatever, but to understand the whole picture, that everything fits in together nicely.
Scott, what do you think the influence is on confidence versus fear?
It's a big, especially for new shooters. You set a benchmark regardless. So how you come across, how you explain everything, not just running through the safety rules, but how they apply, how they work as fail-safes, building confidence directly and indirectly from how you are even perceived, never mind how you handle a firearm and explain such to the students. I think it's all about the approach and how you bring that forth to the students. You know, people are very perceptive. They can tell if you even want to be there, you know, if you're passionate about what you do or not. You're going to set, especially for new shooters, you're going to set a benchmark regardless. So first impressions, you know, are obviously always going to be a big thing.
Gerard, expanding on that, what would you say are some instructor behaviors, even if they're subtle ones, like Scott said, that can unintentionally damage a student's confidence or even his willingness to continue training?
Yeah, Rian, yeah, that's quite an interesting question, because a lot of new firearm users, owners, will see social media influencers, how they handle firearms, how they shoot. Okay, I want to have training with this guy because it looks like he knows what he's doing. But you get on a course and the instructor is just basically showing off his skills instead of teaching you something. So it's more about demonstrating than teaching you a skill. And that's what you're there for. So that can put guys off, as well as if you want to help the student, rectify the student, but you do it in a manner that you basically publicly embarrass this guy in front of all the other students. Right then you lose him, switches off. That's his first experience of firearms, firearm trainers, instructors, and you might lose him forever.
Dirk, what about allowing your own emotional frustrations to leak into your the way you present your class, and it comes through in your body language and the way you talk, your voice, etc. Because I mean that can happen. You can get frustrated. You can have a bad day. Something, you're not in a good mood to start with, so you have to go through this whole session and put on your professional facade. But now there are students who are not, they're just not getting with it. How do you prevent that frustration from standing in the way of getting people to learn?
Rian, yeah, sometimes it's very difficult. You need to put the ego and your own emotions aside. And unfortunately, you have to be professional because you are working with paying clients.
Mm.
And unfortunately, they are paying for a session. They are there to learn something. And you also need to respect them just as you respect or want them to respect you. But unfortunately, safety is safety. There's no way around safety. Safety stays 100% solid. There's no bending of rules. So sometimes you need to take a step back, take a deep breath, relax, calm yourself. Maybe in a class environment, say, let's take a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, go walk, take a walk, drink some water or Energade or whatever, calm yourself and then get back and de-escalate the situation before it builds on something else. So de-escalating, avoid conflict as far as possible. So you need to stay calm, doesn't matter what the situation, unless it comes to safety. When it comes to safety, like I said, there's no bending of rules. But there are a few ways of dealing with it, but in a calmer manner.
Okay.
So yeah, sometimes people try and rush and try to stop everything as soon as possible or de-escalate the situation, but you still need to do it in a professional way.
Scott, generally, I think most instructors are good shooters. You at the very least have to be a good shooter in able to, say, okay, I'm going to instruct other people, and you have to know how a gun works and so on. And then you obviously get people who are exceptional at shooting. But does that automatically make you a really good instructor as well? What separates performance ability from teaching ability?
Yeah, good question. I would say, yeah, you need to have a good understanding of, everything you are doing and all the building blocks from for a new shooter. Well, an exceptional shooter was a new student once upon a time. I think having empathy and understanding that you want to 10 people could have the same problem, the same issue that they're dealing with on the line, but you might need to explain it 10 different ways just to get it through, because how that person perceives what is going on and their experience, not necessarily you just being able to explain it how you would do it, because I'm a great shooter, I had this issue once upon a time, this is how I would do it, and that's how you must do it. It's not necessarily going to be that way. We want to make complex situations simpler, not the other way around. We don't want to make it complex because, I don't know, a selling point or some kind of a
and not
tactical
everybody
way.
I don't think everybody has that ability to turn something that's complex into such easy to understand steps for a student,
Yeah, yeah,
that the student can
Because
afterwards say, oh, gee, okay, now that I get that works.
exactly. Because at the end
Mm.
of the day, you are tasked with the progression of the student. And if it takes a little bit longer or their rate of development is quicker, then it's individual.
Gerard, do you think there's a danger if you're a really good shooter and as the instructor, do you think there's a danger of when you uh, um, are showing students certain drills and you are, you're explaining it to them, you're teaching them, you're shooting the drill so they can see maybe as an example. Do you think there's a danger that because you are so good now, you've reached the space, obviously through lots of practice, to get to a stage where you are really a good shooter, and these things come so natural to you that you can skip steps in teaching students these things, purely because for you it has become second nature now?
Most definitely, Rian. I mean, you've put in all the time, all the practice to get to that point. Once you get to that point, you practice, and that's what you stick to. Then at a stage, you sort of forget what you did to get to that point.
Mm.
Now, this is what you need to teach the new students. You think, I can do this, I'm going to show the students how, but you don't break it up into the small little pieces to teach them how to do it. I mean, if you think of, say, these Lego sets that come with instructions, yes, you get this nice big picture of what the set is going to look like. This is where I want to get to with my shooting as well.
Mm.
But to get to that, I need to do step 1, step 2, step 3. If I miss a step somewhere, the whole picture is not complete. The whole 3D Lego piece is not going to be complete. And if you don't know the subject matter good enough to be able to break that down into the small little bits, you will skip a couple of pieces. And that's where that frustration also will start to come in. That why doesn't this guy understand it? I mean, it's easy. Yes, for you as a guy that's been shooting for a long time as a good shooter, but they just started. And like Scott said, various teaching ways for various people, because everyone doesn't understand it the same way. Can you understand that this guy doesn't understand this way of explaining it? Can you approach it from a different angle to make him understand? That is where I think a good instructor starts showing up.
Scott, how do you maintain these standards? And I mean, teaching firearms is obviously a serious thing. There's a lot of accountability on the side of the student and definitely on the side of the instructors. How do you maintain your standards and the seriousness of the subject without the whole thing becoming ego-driven or maybe even exclusive, like overly exclusive?
Yeah, yeah. It's a tricky one, because I think if you set a standard and then just tell students, okay, well, this is what we're going to do for the day, you need to do it. And if you don't e explain what it takes, the progression, it's just pass fail. Guys are just going to think, well, it's too big of a challenge. It's too high of a standard. I'll never get there. But if you use an example like the safety standards, you cannot negotiate on how paramount the safety standards are and how high of a standard you need to constantly maintain. That needs to become second nature. That will be tested under pressure, and it needs to be obvious in how the student is handling their firearm on the line, weapon manipulation, and then from there, I would, you always want to set a very high standard because it's in the student's best interest at the end of the day.
Hmm.
But explaining them showing the progression, explaining quite literally how it is done, and throughout the day, with progress on all the methods on how you do things, then the pennies start to drop, and you can see these little bits of like satisfaction on their part, confidence building, and at the same time, it's human nature. People like a good challenge, but if you can break it down into certain goals and stages and progression,
Dirk,
it becomes an easier process.
it's easy enough to, I think, to make specifically a beginner feel intimidated as an instructor, you know, overly aggressive, in your face. It's easy enough to do that. Even if it's just through like a display of your skills, and that person stands here and thinks, oh, I'm going to look crap trying this now, you know. How do you build respect more by using clarity instead of intimidation?
Rian, like Scott said, you need to break things down. You need to, everything starts at one point, builds up to a certain point. So if your ego is going to kick in, you're gonna, let's say, for instance, show off, okay, this is what we want you to do, or this is where we're going to end up, and you don't break it up, but you like the way you do it, and you want everybody to do it that way. That is bad because not everybody can do that. I can use the example for shooting positions that I presented a while back. With my body type and flexibility, I can actually go down laying flat and shoot prone position. But because everybody is built differently, not everybody can do that. So I can't force anybody to do it like I'm doing it. But I can say, okay, this is the way I can do it. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options to maintain or to obtain the same standard. You can go down this way or this way, you can get up this way, as long as all the safety requirements are met. So I would say for when you are presenting a class, or when an instructor is presenting a class, forget about you. You need to work on the student. The student is your, I would say, a project that you need to build up bit by bit by bit, like Gerard said, the Lego blocks, up to that standard. And unfortunately, you just need to be the, how can I say, the glue that stick this piece to another piece to another piece as you are building up. And unfortunately, when the ego part kicks in, everybody sees it and they get demotivated because they don't understand the whole mindset picture of why we need to do that.
Gerard, to what an extent does social media distort expectations of what real training actually looks like, if you compare it to what's necessary for real competence development?
Yes, Rian, that is quite a challenge for us on the range because, again, there's so many these short, I mean, you talk about 30 seconds to 1 minute reels because our attention span is only this long these days. So short reels, and they show the freaking John Wick moves, they show the fast-paced action, and the new student, this is what I want to do. But it's not shown how to get there, the time it takes to get there. It does not happen overnight. It takes minutes, hours, days of training to get to a certain level. And then you can't think, okay, but I've arrived. I have to keep on training to maintain that and to get better. That's why we are so anal on dry fire drills. I mean, I think the students are like tired of us saying dry fire, but we've seen a lot of them realize the results they get when they actually do it, compared to the guys that doesn't touch their firearm for a month and then they come to a range and they almost start from scratch. So all that effort, all that time you have to put in to get to that level, a lot of guys, first of all, don't see it and they don't want to do it. It's too much effort. They want a magic pill, a magic recipe for instant satisfaction, and there it is. And that's unfortunately what's being portrayed a lot by social media to the general public.
Scott, when we talk responsibilities, and specifically responsibilities on behalf of the student, now on the side of the student, what responsibilities do they carry into training? What do you think makes someone genuinely coachable?
Most importantly, I would say you got to take ownership, accountability, not just for your safe handling, and you're legally and morally responsible with your firearm, but your time and your willingness to go practice, like Gerard said. And I'd say good traits, come to the range, take notes, go home and practice with intent. Have a good attitude. We always say, leave the ego. Everyone's got ego, but the reason we keep saying that is it's just going to save you time. Your ego is eventually going to get bruised. So rather just handle that now. It'll help your progression. The willingness to learn, and it all depends on how much do you want it. Why are you here? Why are you training? What is your driving force? What are you willing to do? What is lighting that fire underneath you? So that can push how serious you take everything.
I understand that, if it's a day course, if you're just going for the day, and then it's over. Maybe go with the understanding that, you will need more than that afterwards. So look out for more courses. And if it's a long distance course like the full loan operator course, which stretches over 12 months, I think being teachable also means that you understand that you've made this commitment, and it's a commitment to yourself more than anything else. So it's kind of, I don't know, to me, it's kind of pointless then just attending the modules, but not doing anything in between and still expecting your own standards to improve. I don't think that's realistic. If you're specific, well, for anybody, but specifically also for a beginner, you can't expect to improve too much if you only shoot in every module on the range, and you do nothing in between. That's counterproductive, isn't it? That's not teachable.
Exactly. I just, like Gerard said, the attention span, and just ticking that box. I did that day course. Now I am excellent at shooting in and around vehicles. I'll never have to practice that again. Brush up. I think it's at the bottom line is, I think people just don't want to realize that right now I'm not great or even good, and it just takes hard work and dedication for me to get better in increments. But the process is, that's what it's all about, and getting that incentive, whatever is driving you, so that you can start enjoying the process and just keep training.
It's like with any skill. I mean, shooting is a new skill I'm learning, like with driving a car, like with welding, like with whatever the case. I mean, it does not happen overnight. How much time and practice do you have to put in to get your driver's license?
Mm.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly.
To be a proper welder, you don't just grab a welding rod, start welding, and it's going to be sorted. You need to practice, practice, practice. Same with shooting. Start with the basics, master the basics, move on, move on, move on. Don't jump ahead.
Yeah, follow the process.
Rian,
Otherwise,
just to
mm,
add on to one point that you mentioned, it's a long course, it's 12 months. If you think about it, it's 12 days of training
Mm.
over 12 months. Can you take any person in 12 days and make him a marksman? But if you think about it, you take one day, you learn him a new skill. He has 30 or 28 days or whatever to go and practice that. Then on the next session, you teach him something to build on the previous one. If he doesn't go and practice that in between spaces, the progress will be very, very small, because the one thing builds on another, builds on another, builds on another. And if one of those bricks are gone, that whole foundation actually is going to tumble in.
yeah, well, he's basically shafting himself.
And not just that, is that one person will keep the rest of the class from actually progressing, because now the instructor needs to go back, explain or put more tension into that one person that's keeping the whole class back, where the class was actually structured to move forward, and now it needs to stop, bring back, and then start building everything up to where we actually can carry on with the day's training.
And just like that, we're back to the point where the instructor must always try and stay calm.
Exactly.
100%.
Dirk, just continuing on that point, what beginner behaviors immediately stand out to instructors as signs of a good attitude and a strong potential for development? In other words, somebody who you recognize is really teachable and will progress.
Rian, person that's actually willing to learn. You can see that in their body language, the type of questions they ask. Somebody that accepts when you teach him, you tell him, for instance, your grip is wrong or your sight moved. This is how you can fix it. Not just laughing it off, but actually go and ask more questions. How can I fix this? What can I do? How can I progress? How can I be better in this? So the type of questions somebody will, or the student will ask you, will tell you actually a lot. Are that person willing to learn? The mindset of the person plays a big role, because he might not just think it's a fun day on the range. He's going to tell you, I'm here because of this happened previously, this happens to a friend, this happens to this and this, and this is the reason why I am here, because I am the person responsible for my family's safety.
He
Might be
understands his why.
He understands his
Yes.
why, like Gerard just said. So
Yes.
that person actually stands out, and you can easier work with a person like that, because that person doesn't have an ego. He's there and he's willing to learn. So that's what I would say makes a student stand out.
If you manage to can the ego, then you will also accept corrections from an instructor. Right there, accept it, understand it, make sure you understand it and work on addressing those, instead of putting up all kinds of arguments, which gets nobody nowhere.
Yeah, because a
And it
typical
takes a
argument
lot.
like that is, this is how I've been doing it for years. This is how I've been
Yes.
shooting for years. You try to help this guy, and his why is wrong, his willingness is wrong, so he wants to stick to this method.
Yeah,
Even
'cause
if you
maybe-
prove to him that is wrong, he just doesn't want to listen. He's not teachable.
Yeah, it's a two-way street between an instructor and a student. There must be something from the student. And And if you are an experienced shooter in a class and it's more of a beginner sort of class, or you start lone operator and you start with the basics again, then I think you also need to be able to tell yourself that I'm here to learn. So I'm going to take what I can learn from this instead of arguing the whole time, and apply it and see if this can take my shooting to a next level. But it's an ego thing that you need to, everybody needs to overcome the ego, instructors and students.
Both parties need to be teachable.
Exactly. And that's important for instructors as well. Instructors also have to be willing to continue learning and not
Absolutely.
reach a point where they think, okay, now, now I know everything. I don't think you ever know everything. Scott, how dangerous is false confidence in firearms training? If you look at prioritizing things like performance and identity and validation over fundamentals.
Massive. Yeah, and that goes for everyone handling a firearm. If you've got that overconfidence, and like Gerard was saying now, you've got guys that, no, this is the way I do it, and that's that, and they will almost, a part of them will flat out refuse to want to learn something new or a certain way, and part of that way and that way of doing things is revolved around safety. Wanting to just get the shooting done because that's what it's all about. Not wanting to have to sit and listen to the instructor explain why we do certain things, how, and etc. Wanting to rush the process and be the fastest or try to keep up with the guy next to you. And the guy next to you could be an amazing shooter, but that's his journey that day. You must be focused on learning, and sometimes that requires you to turn it down a notch, back it up, go slower, learn, and then, like Dirk said, you've got that month in between. Use that time to go and practice and, yeah, have a conversation with yourself about your progression.
Yeah, but actually use it to your advantage, yes.
Exactly. So it's, you kind of got to get out of your own way, and like you said now, instructors, everyone must always be 50% student, 50% instructor. Don't be, you don't know everything. So have the humility and patience.
Dirk, how do you create a training culture that's serious and standards driven, but still feels approachable enough for new students, new shooters to feel welcome instead of feeling sort of overwhelmed, maybe intimidated and so on?
Rian, there need to be a balance between authority and approachability. So, yes, you are, how can I say, in charge of that line, but you must still be approachable. So you can't, I normally say, respect is earned. It's not demanded. So the way I treat people is the way I want to be treated back. So how you speak, your tone of voice, your instructions, everything needs to be standard. You can't now all of a sudden use one range command and then another, and you're going to confuse people. And as soon as that starts to come through, you will not be approachable anymore. They might even sit through your class, do the class, and then all of a sudden they might go and ask a complete different instructor, but what was this actually about? Because like Gerard said, that switch flips off and nobody wants to train anymore, but they paid, so now they are here. Yeah, to add to that, normalizing questions. Don't ask too complicated questions. break everything down, and fix mistakes early. Not, how can I say, don't jump the gun. Break it
No
down.
pun
So,
intended.
yeah, no pun intended. Break it down into a big puzzle that you are building. The puzzle you are building, you're going to lay brick by brick or puzzle piece by puzzle piece. But to train that mindset, everything through until the end, well, unfortunately, we don't know where the end is because we are, as instructors, doesn't even know everything. So we are still students, like Scott just said.
Mm.
So take it as a learning curve.
Yeah, consistency, I think, on the instructor side. There must be consistency in your messages. And students must know where you are going with them. They must have a clear idea of what you're trying to achieve, I think. This final question I'm going to throw open to all three of you, so feel free to jump in. Two things. If you could redesign our civilians, because remember, we work mostly with civilians, are introduced to firearms training in South Africa, what would you change? And secondly, what kind of people should, in other words, what should be the final product, or how would you like to see the final product of this training environment change in terms of where students end up?
Yeah, and I think a
Yeah.
big gap we have at the moment. Sorry, Dirk.
Carry on.
Especially what we see a lot on the range.
Mm.
Competency training. What kind of shooting do you need to do to be deemed competent to have a firearm? You shoot an A4 piece of paper, couple of shots, you are sorted. There's your firearm. You can now shoot. I think that kind of training needs to be seriously looked at to involve a bit more on mindset as well. The fact of mindset and responsibility. Why do I have this firearm?
Mm.
And what's my responsibility now? Because people think I've got the firearm, I'm carrying the firearm, I am safe, I'm sorted. But they don't understand the responsibility of a civilian carrying a firearm and when they intend to use it and everything around it.
Rian, just to add on Gerard's point,
Okay.
according to what the way I feel is that a competency tells you you are competent to understand what a firearm is. This is the slide, this is the hammer, this is the trigger, and this is how you shoot it. It doesn't focus anything, like Gerard said, on the mindset, properly how to use it, when to use it, and when not to use it. At this stage, everything is, this is your competency, go get your gun, and you are sorted. So the long term, there needs to be a long-term training vision, if I can say it like that, to keep people trained. Shooting is a perishable skill. We said it many times before, and you need to sharpen up your skills. Even if you go, we as instructors, we know we need to do at least 3 fundamental shoots per year. But fundamentals is the starting point. But why does instructors need to do fundamentals? Because that is the foundation of all the shooting blocks building up onto each other. If they
Exactly.
are
Everything builds on that.
Exactly, everything builds on that, and that's why that is the most important thing. And unfortunately, according to social media, if I can say it like that, everybody wants to see this fast shooting, accurate shooting, distance shooting, but nobody actually asked the question, how many times, hours, days, months, years practice is that focusing on that fundamental to be able to do that? Most people just want to come in and do it. And then they see, but this is actually not doable, and that demotes them to actually want to do further training because they are jumping the steps. Rather take the small steps and work up to a goal, and then take it. Say, okay, I've done this. Now I feel comfortable to do this, because most times the student or the new firearm owner doesn't feel comfortable with the firearm. They have it,
Yeah.
they know how to use it, they know how to pull the trigger, they know how to load a mag, put a magazine in, rack the slide, whatever the situation might be. But will that make them the world's fastest bull drill shooter, for instance,
Scott?
without that proper training steps?
Yeah. So on that, Dirk, exactly that. And when they get demotivated, they start to look at the kit as their next answer. You know, but if I get the bet, well, this is more expensive, or this is rated better, and I've got this fancier optic on, or whatever the case is, or I've got all the guns. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying. But at the end of the day, the emphasis on not just training, but the importance of training, and not just the fundamentals, but the fact that it's always the fundamentals. Every single time you draw your firearm and handle your firearm, the fundamentals will be at play. That's it. And like Dirk said, all the building blocks on top of that. But fundamentally, I can give Dirk or Gerard my wonderful Glock 17, and if they don't throw it away straight away, it won't take them long. Just applying the fundamentals and working out, okay, cool, this trigger is not so great, but everything else is the same. Same thing. But understanding the training is the way. Dry firing, live firing, the journey, the evolving, the progression, and learning more about yourself. It's all hand in hand, you know, and that is the key, as far as I think.
Yeah, and to me, that's why, because look, if you purchase a firearm under Section 13, then it's for a very specific purpose, for a potential defensive purpose. Then I'm of the opinion then you need to use that gun a lot. Because if you end up using it for a defensive shooting, you know, that's about as serious as you can get, and you need to really be on top of it to improve your chances. And it is more so maybe in a case like that, then the onus is on the student, or should be on the student to be on a continuous journey of training and progressing and shooting and dry firing and everything that they can do, and even just figuring out carry configurations and which holsters work and which holsters don't work. I mean, I think it's safe enough to say every shooter who's had a firearm for a certain amount of years has got several old holsters lying around in a drawer somewhere that they have discarded, and the same with belts. That they realized at some stage it's just not
Doesn't work.
It's not working. It's not cutting it. The gun is falling out. If I'm falling to the ground, stuff like that, and stuff like that, you only really tend to find out and figure out when you are doing some training where maybe it's, you know, as you progress and more stress starts in being involved, stress-induced situations. I think there's that responsibility to do that. Just as an
Yes, like we teach the students, if you've got gear, you have to test it. Otherwise, how do you know if it works? There's no use. Yes, the holster fits my gun, it fits my belt. Okay, I'm sorted. But you haven't put it through its paces.
And it's like, Dirk, I think you said it. It's the same journey, just on a different level that an instructor has to continue on. You should be forever learning and improving. That should be the instructor's journey as well, not only for the student. So this basically applies across the board. But I think by and large, instructors tend to be, by nature, because they made the choice to become instructors for whatever reason, to be more focused on this and really put effort in. And I think
No, definitely.
I think if all students can adopt that mindset, then that would create a scenario where people end up having more people who are really, really competent with those firearms, not just because they got a competency certificate, but because they've been working with it and training with it. I think that illustrates a definite level of seriousness about it. Okay.
No, definitely.
Unless you guys have got something to add, I'm going to end it there. Anybody?
Just one thing, Riaan.
Yes.
Everyone must just go home and dry fire. That's it.
Nice one on that. And
Did
I'll
you-
add on to that
Yes.
mindset. People do not understand how crucial mindset is when it comes to firearms.
Dirk,
Riaan,
you have
just
to
to
throw
add-
in something to sound clever now as well. You've got no choice now.
Oh, I have to. I can't. Just like Scott said, go and dry fire. But dry fire alone will not make you a better shooter. Do perfect dry fire to get the perfect skill to carry on your next session. So it's not just pulling the gun, pulling the trigger. You hear the click, rack the gun, and whatever, but you have to focus. That's where the mindset comes in. You have to focus. This is what I'm training. This is how I need to train it. And if you don't know or you are unsure how to train, ask the questions. Ask, guys, I'm struggling with this. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. Am I doing it right? This is the right way. Okay. Now I'm just focusing. I need to do a mag change, for instance, up here or whatever the case may be. Go and do perfect practice, not just go and practice.
Dry fire
with purpose and intent.
Yes.
Exactly.
Dry fire, range time training, and repeat.
Sounds good.
Indeed.
Right. If you found value in this discussion, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share it with people who you know would find value in it as well. And as always, smash the bell icon so you can get notifications of new videos coming in. It's all about making you a safer, more capable, and eventually a more responsible firearms owner. Stay safe, stay prepared, and keep training. If you're interested in any of the training offered by Lone Operator and Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions, there is always a link in the description below. Check it out, and we look forward, well, these three gentlemen look forward to meeting you on a range one of these days. Scott, Gerard, Dirk, that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Riaan.
Thanks,
As
Riaan.
always, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.